She is not family. Vivian Caruso's voice cut across the Christmas dining room at 7:12 in the evening, and the hand-painted place card bearing Maya Reed's name disappeared beneath her fingers. Maya stood beside the final chair at the long walnut table, wearing a simple black dress instead of her gray housekeeping uniform. A narrow gold ribbon circled her waist, and the pearl earrings Margaret Caruso had given her the previous Christmas caught the candlelight when she turned her head. For one fragile moment, she had believed the invitation was real. Then Vivian lifted the card, handed it to Thomas Avery, and pointed toward the doorway. "Remove the chair." Thomas did not move immediately. The room glowed with evergreen garlands, red berries, polished silver, and more candles than anyone could count. Outside the tall windows, snow rested across the Tarrytown estate in smooth white layers. Inside, every member of the Caruso family watched the Black Maid stand where Margaret's handwritten guest list had placed her. Preston Caruso leaned back in his chair and glanced at Maya's dress. "This is a family dinner, not a staff party." His wife, Lauren, offered a sympathetic smile that carried no kindness. "No one is questioning how helpful you have been, Maya. But traditions matter." Maya looked toward Thomas. "You gave me the place card." The older house manager held it at his side, his face heavy with regret. "Mrs. Margaret wrote your name herself," he said. Vivian's expression hardened. "My sister was very ill when she prepared that list. She was not making sound social decisions." The words reached Maya more painfully than the removal of the chair. She had spent the final 8 months of Margaret's life helping her drink tea when her hands shook, reading aloud when her eyes became tired, and writing letters when illness made holding a pen difficult. Margaret had forgotten appointments near the end, but she had never forgotten Maya's name. "Mrs. Caruso knew what she wanted," Maya said quietly. Vivian folded the place card in half. "What she wanted does not change what is appropriate." A soft scrape crossed the floor as Thomas finally pulled the chair back. Maya felt every inch of that sound. At the far end of the room, Margaret's usual seat remained empty, a single white candle burning before it. Maya had placed the candle there that afternoon, following the notes Margaret had left for Christmas. She had hung the glass ornaments, arranged the cedar branches, and baked the apple pie Margaret loved. Now the people who had arrived after sunset were deciding that the woman who prepared every memory did not belong inside it. "My nephew is waiting downstairs," Maya said. Noah was included on the list too. Vivian gave Thomas a sharp look. "A child was brought into the house without my approval." "He was invited," Maya replied. "By Margaret," Vivian said, who is no longer here to correct her mistake. Maya's fingers tightened around the small paper ornament Noah had made for the tree. It showed a crooked green star with Margaret's name written across it in blue marker. Noah had worn his best white shirt and waited in the staff sitting room because Maya told him Christmas dinner would be different this year. "May he at least have a hot plate before we leave?" she asked. Preston let out a quiet breath. "The kitchen can prepare something after service. He has been waiting since 6. Then he can wait a little longer." Maya lowered her eyes. She did not ask again. She reached for the place setting, intending to help Thomas remove it before returning downstairs. Vivian stopped her. "Since you are already dressed improperly for work, change back into your uniform and assist with dinner. We are short one server." Maya looked toward the clock. Her shift had ended 12 minutes earlier. Still, she understood how quickly refusal could become a complaint in a house where she needed employment. "Yes, ma'am," she said. From the shadowed doorway behind Vivian, Julian Caruso stepped into the candlelight. He had heard the insult, the request for Noah's meal, and the order that Maya continue serving after being denied the invitation his mother had written. His pale face remained still beneath the dark collar of his suit, but his gaze settled on the folded place card in Vivian's hand. "Give me that," he said. No one spoke. Vivian turned. Slowly. "Julian, this is a family matter." He crossed the room, took the card from her fingers, and opened it along the crease. Maya Reed. The handwriting was unmistakably his mother's. Julian looked at Thomas. "Put the chair back." Thomas returned the chair to its place beside Julian, but Maya did not sit. The soft scrape of wood across the polished floor sounded louder than the Christmas music drifting from the parlor. Vivian remained standing near Margaret's empty seat, her posture rigid beneath a silver evening gown. "Julian," she said, "you are allowing sentiment to overrule tradition." He placed Maya's unfolded card beside the plate. My mother wrote her name. Your mother was ill. She was still the owner of this house. Preston shifted in his chair. No one is disputing what Aunt Margaret wanted. We are questioning whether she understood how this would appear. Julian looked down the length of the table. To whom? Preston glanced toward Lauren, but neither answered. Julian turned to Maya. She still held Noah's handmade ornament against her palm, the paper star bending slightly beneath her fingers. Would you like to join us? He asked. The question unsettled her more than an order would have. For 2 years, Maya had been told when to arrive, where to stand, what to carry, and when to disappear. Even kindness in wealthy homes often arrived as instruction. Julian was offering her something different. Choice. Noah is downstairs, she said. Then he should be asked too. Vivian let out a quiet breath of disbelief. A 12-year-old child cannot simply enter a formal dinner because a staff member brought him to work. Maya looked at her. He did not come to work. He came because Mrs. Caruso invited him. There is no proof of that. Thomas finally lifted his eyes. There is. Everyone turned toward him. The house manager's hands trembled slightly at his sides. Mrs. Margaret prepared 2 cards. One for Miss Reed and one for Noah Reed. She also wrote a letter for Mr. Julian. Julian's expression changed. Where is it? Thomas looked toward Vivian. The answer became clear before he spoke. The library desk. Vivian's face lost some of its certainty. Margaret wrote many letters during her illness. Not every thought required execution. You found it, Julian said. It was not a question. Vivian reached for her wineglass, but did not lift it. I found an envelope among the Christmas instructions. I believed reading it tonight would cause unnecessary distress. You decided that for me. I protected the family. Julian glanced toward Maya, then toward the empty chair where his mother had once Saturday. From what? Vivian's voice sharpened. From confusing loyalty with intimacy. Employees may be kind. They may become trusted. That does not make them relatives. Maya lowered her gaze, but Julian saw the hurt she tried to hide. He remembered months of travel, missed calls, and brief visits arranged around business. Maya had been present during the hours he had avoided because watching his mother weaken made him feel powerless. Vivian and Preston had sent flowers. Lauren had mailed expensive blankets. Maya had sat beside Margaret when gifts no longer mattered. Thomas, Julian said, bring me the letter. Vivian stepped forward. Dinner is already being delayed. Then it can wait. The room fell silent. Thomas left through the side door. Maya remained beside the restored chair, uncertain whether staying would deepen the conflict. Mr. Caruso, Noah and I can leave, she said softly. I do not want Christmas ruined because of us. Julian looked at her. You did not remove your own place card. His words carried no anger toward her, only clarity. You did not hide my mother's letter. You did not tell a child to wait hungry downstairs. Preston's expression tightened. There is no need to dramatize this. Julian turned toward him. When was the last time you sat with my mother for more than an hour without discussing property, doctors, or photographs? Preston opened his mouth, then closed it. Julian looked at Lauren. She lowered her eyes. Finally, he faced Vivian. When did you last stay after the nurse left? The candle flame before Margaret's empty chair moved in the heat. No one answered. Maya's fingers tightened around the paper ornament. Julian looked back at her. You stayed. She did not claim credit. She did. Not like being alone at night. And Noah? He read to her on Saturdays. Julian remembered finding a children's adventure book beside his mother's bed and assuming a nurse had left it there. Before he could speak, Thomas returned carrying a cream envelope sealed with Margaret's initials. He placed it beside Maya's name card. Vivian went still. Julian touched the seal, but did not open it immediately. His mother's final instruction had been waiting in the same house, while everyone else argued over who belonged at her table. Bring Noah upstairs, he said. Maya hesitated. Should we read the letter first? Julian looked at the empty chair, then at the ornament in her hand. No, my mother already wrote his name. Thomas found Noah in the staff sitting room beside a small artificial tree, his best white shirt buttoned to the collar and his shoes polished more carefully than the occasion required. A covered plate rested untouched on the table near him. When Maya entered, he stood immediately. Are we leaving? He asked. She looked at the paper star still in her hand. Mr. Caruso wants to know whether you would like to join dinner. Noah glanced toward the hallway. Did they change their minds? Maya chose her words carefully. Julian found the invitation Margaret wrote. Noah looked down at the ornament he had made. It was cut from green construction paper, reinforced with cardboard, and decorated with silver glitter that had fallen unevenly across the points. Can I put this on her tree first? You can ask. They climbed the service staircase together. Maya felt Noah's fingers tighten around hers as the sounds of the dining room grew closer. He had spent enough time in wealthy homes to recognize the difference between being welcomed and being tolerated. At the entrance to the parlor, he stopped beneath the archway. Julian was waiting beside the Christmas tree. Vivian, Preston, and Lauren remained in the dining room, visible beyond the open doors, their conversation reduced to uncomfortable silence. Julian looked at Noah's ornament. Did you make that for my mother? Noah nodded. She said handmade things remember people better. The word struck Julian with unexpected force. Margaret had spent a lifetime surrounded by expensive objects, yet the decorations she asked for during her final Christmas plans included a child's uneven paper star. Would you like to hang it? Julian asked. Noah looked toward the upper branches. She wanted it near the angel, but I could not reach last year. Julian stepped beside him. Show me where. He lifted Noah carefully, allowing the boy to choose the branch. Noah placed the ornament beneath the crystal angel and adjusted it until Margaret's name faced the room. When Julian lowered him, Noah kept looking upward. She said the angel looked lonely. Julian followed his gaze. The paper star looked out of place among glass ornaments and gold ribbon. That was why it belonged there. Maya stood several feet away, watching Noah smile for the first time that evening. Vivian appeared in the doorway. This has gone far enough, she said. The food is cooling and the guests are waiting. Julian turned toward her. There are no guests. Only family, according to you. Vivian's mouth tightened. Exactly. He placed one hand on Noah's shoulder. Then explain why the boy who read to my mother every Saturday belongs downstairs while people who visited twice a year occupy her table. Preston rose behind her. We came when we could. You came when there were decisions to discuss. Julian's voice remained calm. Maya came when there was nothing to gain. Maya stepped forward. Mr. Caruso, please do not make Noah part of an argument. Julian looked at her and immediately removed his hand from the boy's shoulder. You are right. The correction was quiet but visible. He turned to Noah instead. Would you like to eat with us? Noah looked at Maya. She did not answer for him. Will Aunt Maya sit too? He asked. Julian glanced toward the restored chair beside his own. Only if she wants to. Noah nodded. Then yes. They returned to the dining room together. Thomas placed Noah's recovered name card beside Maya's, then set another chair near her. Vivian watched the arrangement with disbelief. You are allowing a child to dictate the table. Julian picked up the sealed letter. No, I am respecting an invitation my mother made before anyone here decided her wishes were inconvenient. He broke the seal and unfolded the cream paper. Margaret's handwriting crossed 3 pages, unsteady in places but unmistakably deliberate. Julian began reading silently. Halfway through the first page, his expression changed. Maya saw grief settle across his face, not dramatic or loud, but heavy enough to make his shoulders lower. Read it aloud, Vivian said. Perhaps she believed the letter would prove her right. Julian looked toward Maya. May I? Maya understood that part of the letter concerned her. Yes. He began with the first line. My dear Julian, if you are reading this at Christmas, then I was not given one more year at the table. Do not let the empty chair become more important than the people who stayed beside it. No one moved. Julian continued. Maya protected my dignity when illness made every simple task feel like a public failure. Noah gave me stories when the adults gave me advice. They are invited because they brought comfort without asking what it might earn them. Thomas lowered his eyes. Preston's hand stopped beside his wineglass. Vivian remained standing, but certainty had begun to leave her face. Julian reached the final paragraph. Blood may explain who enters a family. It does not determine who behaves like one. The candle before Margaret's chair flickered. Maya pressed one hand against Noah's shoulder. Julian folded the letter carefully and looked around the table. My mother answered the question before any of us were brave enough to ask it. The letter remained open in Julian's hands while the dining room settled into a silence deeper than embarrassment. Vivian looked first at Margaret's handwriting, then at Maya, as though the paper itself had betrayed her. Your mother was sentimental, she said at last. Sentiment does not create policy. Julian folded the pages along their original crease. No. People create policy. Usually the people least affected by it. Thomas stood near the sideboard, his shoulders rigid. Maya could see the shame in his face. He had known about the cards. He had known about the letter. He had still allowed Vivian to remove both. Mr. Avery, Julian said, who changed the seating list. Thomas swallowed. Miss Vivian instructed me to remove Miss Reed and Noah. Did my mother authorize that change? No, sir. Vivian stepped toward the table. Thomas works for this family. He followed the person managing the house. Julian's eyes remained on Thomas. Why did you obey? The older man looked at Maya before answering. Because I was afraid losing my position would leave my wife without medical coverage. Maya felt the room shift again. Thomas had failed her, but his fear was not cruelty. It was dependence. Vivian had understood that difference and used it. He should not be punished, Maya said. Everyone turned toward her. Vivian seemed almost offended by the mercy. Maya continued. He should have told the truth earlier, but he was placed in a position where honesty threatened his family. Julian studied her for a moment. You are defending the man who removed your chair. I am explaining why he did it. That is more consideration than anyone offered you. Maya did not answer. Noah stood beside her, watching the adults with the serious attention children gave to moments they would remember for years. Julian placed the letter beside Margaret's candle. Thomas, you will keep your position. Beginning tonight, you will report directly to me if any member of this family gives an instruction that violates staff policy or changes my mother's written directives. Thomas lowered his head. Thank you, sir. Do not thank me yet. Tomorrow, you will help me document every holiday practice in this house. Vivian gave a short, humorless laugh. You are turning one awkward dinner into an institutional crisis. Julian faced her. A child was hidden downstairs. A woman was ordered to serve after her shift because you did not believe she deserved a chair. That is not awkward. Preston pushed back from the table. This is becoming excessive. Then leave, Julian said. The words were calm. Preston stopped. Julian gestured toward the front hall. No one is being detained. Anyone who believes sharing a meal with Maya and Noah is beneath them may go home. Lauren looked at Preston, but neither moved. The snow had thickened beyond the windows, softening the driveway beneath several inches of white. Their cars were warm, their homes comfortable, yet leaving would admit something none of them wanted named. Vivian remained standing. And if I stay? Then you sit at the same table and follow the same standards. Julian turned to Maya. You have not answered my question. She looked at the place card, the restored chair, and Noah's smaller setting beside it. I would like to stay, she said, but not if I am expected to serve. You are not. And neither is Thomas after the meal begins. Thomas looked up in surprise. Maya added, the kitchen staff have worked since early morning. They should eat while the food is hot too. Julian nodded. Agreed. Vivian's face tightened. You cannot invite every employee into a formal family dinner without notice. I am not asking them to perform for us, Julian said. I am asking that they receive the same hot meal they prepared. He instructed Thomas to tell the kitchen that service would pause. Platters would be set on the sideboard, and everyone working that evening could choose whether to eat in the main dining room or in the parlor with the same food and tableware. No one would be required to join. Choice remained the point. Thomas left to deliver the message. A few minutes later, the head cook appeared at the doorway, still wearing her white jacket, followed by 2 assistants and the evening housekeeper. They looked uncertain until Maya smiled at them. Julian pulled out her chair, but did not touch her arm or direct her body toward it. He simply waited. Maya sat. Noah took the place beside her. Around them, the wealthy family slowly returned to their seats, not because Julian had won an argument, but because leaving would expose exactly what Margaret's letter had revealed. Julian raised no glass. He offered no speech. He looked toward Vivian and said, before anyone eats, there is one more matter. Julian rested both hands on the back of his chair and looked toward Vivian. You will no longer manage household events, staff schedules, or guest arrangements in this residence. The words were measured, but they landed with more force than anger would have. Vivian stared at him across the candlelight. You are removing me from responsibilities I have handled for years because of one disagreement. I am removing authority from someone who used it to erase written instructions, pressure employees, and exclude a child from a meal. Preston leaned forward. There should be a private conversation about this. Julian turned his eyes toward him. The harm was not private. No one answered. Maya looked down at the plate before her. She had not asked for Vivian to lose anything. She had wanted only to leave with Noah before he understood how carefully some people measured human worth. Yet Julian was not offering punishment for her satisfaction. He was changing the structure that had allowed the humiliation to occur. Beginning tomorrow, he continued, Thomas will review all household policies with an outside employment consultant. Every employee will receive written hours, holiday compensation, meal breaks, and a direct reporting option that does not pass through a family member. Lauren placed her napkin beside her plate. This sounds like a corporation, not a home. Maya lifted her eyes. Julian did not. A home with paid staff is also a workplace. The head cook, Elena Martinez, stood near the parlor entrance with 2 kitchen assistants. She had worked at the estate for 11 years and had never heard anyone in the family say those words aloud. Julian looked toward her. Mrs. Martinez, were you told the kitchen staff could eat after the family finished? Elena hesitated. That has always been the arrangement. That is not what I asked. She glanced at Vivian, then answered. Yes, we were told to wait. Did anyone ask whether you preferred that? No, sir. Julian nodded once. That ends tonight. He invited the staff to choose seats in either room. Elena selected the parlor, not because she felt unwelcome at the main table, but because she wanted to sit beside the assistants who had worked with her since dawn. Julian accepted her choice without turning it into a display. Soon, china and serving dishes were carried into both rooms. The expensive place settings no longer marked a boundary between those who prepared the meal and those who received it. Maya watched Thomas bring a warm plate to Noah before serving anyone else. He placed it gently before the boy. I am sorry you had to wait, he said. Noah looked at Maya, then back at Thomas. Thank you. Vivian remained standing. Her chair waited behind her, untouched. You have made your point, she said. Have I? Julian replied. Because Maya still had to ask whether her nephew could eat. Vivian looked toward Maya for the first time without speaking through her. I did not intend to humiliate you. Maya held her gaze. You intended to remove me quietly. That does not make it kinder. The room went still. Vivian appeared ready to defend herself, but no sentence arrived. Maya continued, her voice calm. I do not need to be considered family by everyone at this table. I do need to be treated as a person while I work in this house. Julian's expression softened, though he said nothing. It was not his moment to translate her pain. Vivian finally sat. The action was small, but it marked the first time that evening she had accepted a place at the table without controlling who else deserved one. Thomas poured water for Maya, then took the open chair near Elena in the parlor. Noah tasted the mashed potatoes and smiled. These are better than last year. Elena laughed softly from the next room. That is because you are eating them while they are hot. The tension loosened, not completely, but enough for people to breathe. Julian took his seat beside Maya and unfolded his napkin. There is one final decision, he said. This house will keep my mother's chair empty tonight. Not as a symbol of who is missing, but as a reminder of what she asked us to remember. He looked toward the candle, then toward every person gathered across both rooms. No one who brings dignity into this home will be sent away from its table again. For several seconds, no one reached for the food. Julian's promise remained above the table like the final note of a song that had changed everyone listening to it. Maya looked toward Margaret's candle and wondered whether dignity could truly be protected by a new rule, or whether it depended on who remembered the rule when Julian was not in the room. She had worked in enough homes to know that generous words spoken during emotional evenings sometimes disappeared by ordinary Monday mornings. Julian seemed to understand the doubt in her silence. You do not have to trust a promise made over dinner, he said. You can judge what happens after tonight. Maya met his eyes. That would be fair. He nodded. No gratitude was requested from her. No forgiveness was assumed. Thomas began serving the roast, while Elena and the kitchen staff ate together in the parlor. The meal moved slowly at first. Forks touched china. Candles burned lower. Outside, snow gathered along the stone terrace and covered the tire marks on the drive. Noah ate with the careful manners Maya had taught him, though his attention kept returning to the paper star near the angel. Lauren finally asked him what he had read to Margaret on Saturdays. Adventure books, he said. She liked stories where people got lost and found their way home. Lauren looked toward the empty chair. Did she have a favorite? The one where the boy thought he needed treasure, but what he needed was courage. Noah took another bite of potatoes. She said adults forget that sometimes. Preston lowered his eyes to his plate. For once, no one corrected the child. Vivian remained quiet through most of the meal. Her silence was not surrender, but it was the first space she had left for other people to exist without explanation. Near the end of dinner, she looked at Maya. Margaret spoke about you often, she said. Maya waited. I believe she depended on you because she was lonely. She was lonely, Maya replied. That did not make her confused. Vivian's fingers rested beside her untouched glass. No, she said after a long pause. It did not. The admission was small and incomplete, but Maya accepted it for what it was rather than pretending it repaired everything. When dessert arrived, Julian carried Margaret's apple pie from the sideboard himself. Maya had baked it that afternoon using the handwritten card Margaret kept in a blue kitchen box. Julian cut the first slice and placed it before the empty chair. The second went to Maya. She would have complained that the crust was too perfect, he said. Maya smiled despite herself. She always said imperfections proved it was homemade. Noah leaned toward Julian. Aunt Maya made the crust twice because the first one cracked. Maya gave him a warning look. Julian glanced at the pie. Then my mother would have preferred the first one. A quiet laugh passed through the table, even reaching the parlor. It did not erase the cruelty that had opened the evening. It did something more honest. It allowed a different memory to begin beside it. After dinner, no employee was expected to clear the table alone. Julian carried plates to the sideboard. Preston followed reluctantly, then without being asked carried the remaining serving dishes toward the kitchen. Lauren helped Elena wrap leftovers for staff members to take home. Vivian stood near the tree, looking at Noah's paper star among the expensive ornaments. Maya approached to retrieve her coat. Vivian did not block her path. The invitation should have remained, she said. It was not a complete apology. Maya did not pretend otherwise. Yes, she answered. Vivian looked at her. I was wrong to remove it. Maya held the silence long enough for the words to belong fully to the woman who had spoken them. Thank you for saying that. Near midnight, Julian walked Maya and Noah to the front entrance. Snow had reached nearly 5 inches, and the estate driver waited with the car warmed. Maya paused beneath the doorway. I will return at 8 on Monday. Julian looked surprised. Your schedule says 7. The new holiday policy should not begin only for everyone else. For the first time that night, Julian smiled. 8, then. Thomas handed Maya the place card Margaret had written. She slipped it carefully into her coat pocket. Noah looked back at the glowing tree and the empty chair beyond it. As the door closed against the winter air, Julian understood that saving a seat had been the easiest part. The true measure of the evening would begin after the candles were gone, when respect had to survive without an audience. Monday morning arrived without candles, music, or witnesses. The snow along the Terrytown driveway had hardened into gray ridges, and the mansion looked less like a Christmas memory than a workplace returning to routine. Maya entered at 8 exactly, wearing her gray uniform beneath a navy winter coat. She expected the promise from Christmas Eve to feel smaller in daylight. Instead, Thomas met her in the service hall with a printed schedule, a revised break policy, and a quiet apology. Your hours begin at 8 today, he said. And your meal break is listed at noon, not whenever the family finishes. Maya read the page carefully. Her name appeared beside clear start and end times. Overtime required written approval. Holiday work included additional pay. Beneath the schedule was a telephone number for an outside employment consultant. Did Mr. Caruso prepare this? She asked. He hired someone who knows how to prepare it properly. Thomas looked toward the kitchen. Mrs. Martinez has copies for her staff too. Maya did not smile yet. Paper could be changed. Numbers could go unanswered. Still, it was more than a speech. In the breakfast room, Julian sat alone with coffee and several folders open before him. He wore a charcoal suit, but his jacket rested over the chair, making him look less like the man who controlled half the room and more like a son sorting through what his mother had left unfinished. Maya placed fresh linens on the sideboard. Good morning. Julian looked up. Good morning, Miss Reed. The formality surprised her. In 2 years, he had usually called her Maya without asking what she preferred. Thomas gave me the new policy. Tell the consultant directly if anything is missing. There is something missing. Julian set down his pen. Maya placed the document beside him. The policy protects employees from family members. It does not say what happens if the problem comes from you. He studied the page, then nodded. That is an important omission. A complaint system only works if the most powerful person is included. Julian wrote a note across the margin. You are right. No defensiveness. No reminder that the house belonged to him. Maya felt the first small movement of trust. Not because he agreed, but because he allowed the rule to apply upward. By noon, an employment consultant named Rebecca Sloan arrived from White Plains. She met separately with each staff member in the library. Julian did not attend. Vivian was not invited to manage the session. Elena described years of delayed meals and last-minute schedule changes. Thomas admitted that family requests were often treated as commands even when they contradicted written duties. Maya spoke last. She did not describe Christmas Eve as an isolated incident. She explained the pattern behind it. Employees were expected to absorb inconvenience quietly because speaking made them appear ungrateful. Rebecca listened without interrupting. What would make reporting feel safe? She asked. Written protection from retaliation, Maya replied. And confirmation that a complaint was received, even if the final answer takes time. Rebecca added both requests to her notes. When the meeting ended, Maya found Julian in the hallway outside Margaret's room. The door had remained closed since the funeral. He held the Christmas letter in one hand. I thought I knew how this house operated, he said. Maya stopped several feet away. You knew how it looked from your side. He accepted the distinction. My mother trusted you. She trusted many people in different ways. She wrote that you protected her dignity. Maya looked toward the closed door. Illness took away choices from her every day. I try not to take away more. Julian lowered his eyes to the letter. I did that without realizing it. I spoke to doctors before asking what she wanted. You were afraid. Fear does not make control respectful. The sentence sounded like something he had learned rather than something he had always known. Maya adjusted the linens in her arms. No, it does not. At 5 that afternoon, her shift ended. No one asked her to remain. No guest arrived with an unexpected request. No family member changed the schedule. As Maya reached the service entrance, Julian called her name from the hall. She turned. He held out a revised policy page. A new line had been added beneath the complaint procedure. All household members, including the owner, are subject to the same reporting and review process. Maya read it twice. This is a beginning, she said. Julian did not ask for praise. Then we will see whether it lasts. She folded the page and placed it beside Margaret's place card in her bag. Outside, the winter air was sharp, but the path had been cleared. Behind her, the house continued without ceremony, and for the first time, respect was being tested where it mattered most, on an ordinary day. 3 weeks passed, and the new rules survived their first tests. Overtime requests arrived in writing. Meal breaks began on time. Rebecca Sloan called each employee privately to confirm that the reporting line worked. Julian did not ask what anyone had said. Maya noticed that restraint more than any apology. On a cold Thursday afternoon, Vivian returned to the estate carrying a garment bag and a list of instructions for a charity dinner she expected to host in February. Thomas met her in the front hall. Event planning now requires Mr. Caruso's approval and staff consultation, he said. Vivian looked past him toward Maya, who was arranging winter flowers on the console table. I am not asking permission to organize a family tradition. Thomas held the new policy at his side. Then I cannot assign the work. The old fear remained in his voice, but it no longer controlled his answer. Vivian's gaze settled on Maya. Did you write this rule? No, Maya replied. The staff helped shape it. That sounds like the same thing. Before Maya could answer, Julian entered from the library. He had heard enough to understand the moment, but he did not take over immediately. Thomas gave you the correct response, he said. Vivian turned toward him. You have made employees believe they govern the house. They govern their own labor. And what happens when every request becomes a negotiation? Then we learn whether the request was reasonable. Vivian looked at the garment bag in her hand, then toward the staircase. I came to leave Margaret's silver shawl for storage. Maya recognized it immediately. Margaret had worn it during her final Thanksgiving, when lifting her arms had become difficult. Maya had fastened it around her shoulders while Vivian answered telephone calls in another room. It belongs in her wardrobe, Vivian said. Julian looked toward Maya. Would you be comfortable placing it there? He asked rather than instructed. Maya considered the closed bedroom upstairs. She had avoided entering since Margaret's death because the room held too many unfinished mournings. Yes, she said, but I would like someone with me. Who? Vivian. The request surprised everyone. Vivian's expression tightened. Why me? Because it belonged to your sister. For several seconds, Vivian said nothing. Then she handed Thomas the garment bag and followed Maya upstairs. Margaret's room still carried the faint scent of lavender powder and cedarwood. The curtains were open, allowing pale winter light across the bed and the reading chair where Noah had once sat with his books. Maya opened the wardrobe. Vivian removed the shawl carefully, smoothing the silver fabric between her hands. She wore this the night our father announced Julian would inherit the business, she said. She told me afterward that families often confuse responsibility with importance. Maya looked at her. She said something similar to Noah. Vivian gave a small, tired smile. She repeated her best lessons because none of us listened the first time. Together, they placed the shawl on its padded hanger. Vivian noticed a cardboard box on the closet shelf. Inside were labeled envelopes, recipe cards, and several handwritten notes. One envelope bore her name. Her hand stopped above it. Did you know this was here? She asked. No. Would you stay while I read it? Maya could have refused. Nothing required her to comfort the woman who had removed her chair. Still, she understood the difference between serving someone and choosing to remain. Yes, she said. Vivian opened the envelope. Margaret's letter was brief. It thanked her sister for managing years of celebrations, then asked her to remember that tradition was meant to carry love forward, not keep people outside. Vivian read the final line twice. Her face changed without collapsing into tears. She knew, she whispered. She knew what I was becoming. Maya stood beside the wardrobe, not rescuing her from the truth and not abandoning her inside it. Downstairs, Julian waited without entering. When the two women returned, Vivian held the letter openly rather than hiding it. She placed the charity dinner instructions on the table. I would like to revise these with the staff, she said. Thomas looked at Maya, then at Julian. Julian did not answer for them. Maya picked up the schedule and read the first page. We can discuss it during paid planning time. Vivian nodded. That is fair. The room remained quiet, but this time the silence did not erase anyone. It made space for a different answer. By early February, the estate no longer ran on unspoken expectations. The charity dinner Vivian had once planned alone became the first event organized under the new system. Every employee received the schedule 2 weeks in advance. Attendance beyond regular hours was voluntary and paid. Elena selected the menu with her kitchen team, Thomas approved staffing based on actual availability, and Maya joined the planning meeting only because she chose to. Vivian arrived with fewer instructions and more questions. The change did not make her gentle overnight, but it forced her to practice respect before she felt comfortable with it. During the final meeting, she placed a seating chart on the library table. I have left 4 places open for staff representatives, she said. Maya studied the page. Are they expected to sit as examples of how well the new policy works? Vivian paused. No, then why are the seats labeled staff representatives instead of their names? The question exposed the difference between inclusion and display. Vivian looked down at the chart, took a pencil, and erased the labels. Who would like to attend? Elena chose to spend the evening with her family. Thomas preferred to supervise the event and eat afterward with the staff. 2 kitchen assistants accepted because the charity supported a community food pantry they used as children. Maya declined. Vivian seemed surprised. You do not want a seat? I want the choice to say no without disappointing anyone. Julian, seated near the window, said nothing. His silence allowed Vivian to answer for herself. Then no, she said. You will not disappoint me. Maya nodded. It was the first invitation from Vivian that did not contain a hidden obligation. On the evening of the dinner, Maya completed her regular shift at 5 and prepared to leave. Noah was waiting at home with schoolwork and a frozen pizza. He insisted he could cook alone. Before Maya reached the service entrance, Thomas stopped her with an envelope. Inside was a formal letter confirming a pay increase and a new position as household staff liaison, with scheduled administrative hours and training paid by the estate. Maya read every line. Who recommended this? She asked. The consultant, Thomas said, after speaking with the staff. Did Mr. Caruso approve it? He approved the budget. The role was designed independently. Maya found Julian in the library. Guests were arriving in the front hall, but he stood alone beside Margaret's desk. "I received the offer," she said. "You do not have to accept it." "I know. And your current position remains secure if you refuse." She watched him carefully. 6 weeks earlier, he might have presented the promotion as generosity. Now he understood that an opportunity without the freedom to decline was another form of control. "I would like 3 days to review it," Maya said. "Take a week." 3 is enough. Julian nodded. Then 3. She turned to leave, but he spoke again. "There is something else." He opened a drawer and removed the place card Margaret had written. Maya had believed it remained in her coat pocket, but this one was different. It bore Julian's name in the same unsteady handwriting. On the back, Margaret had written a single sentence. "Ask who is missing before you decide the table is complete." "Thomas found it with the other Christmas papers," Julian said. "I thought it belonged to you." Maya shook her head. "It belongs where you can see it." Julian placed it upright on the desk. Through the library doors, the charity guests moved beneath chandeliers while staff members worked according to hours they had agreed to. No one was hidden downstairs. No one waited for leftovers. No one had to perform gratitude for basic fairness. Maya slipped the employment letter into her bag. "Good night, Mr. Caruso." "Good night, Miss Reed." She left through the same service entrance she had used for 2 years, but the door no longer felt like a boundary between those who mattered and those who served. Behind her, Julian looked at his mother's message and understood that a full table was not measured by how many chairs it held. It was measured by whether anyone had been made invisible before the meal began. 3 days later, Maya returned the employment letter with several notes written in the margins. She accepted the staff liaison position, but only after requesting a 6-month review, independent training, and a written guarantee that any employee could speak with Rebecca Sloan without asking Maya's permission. "I do not want this role to become another doorway controlled by one person," she told Julian. He read each revision carefully. "Approved. You should ask Rebecca whether the structure works before approving it." A faint smile touched his face. "Then I will ask Rebecca." Maya signed only after the consultant confirmed the changes. Her first week in the new position brought no grand ceremony. She spent 2 paid hours learning workplace documentation, met privately with Elena and Thomas, and created a simple form employees could complete without naming themselves. The most important test came from a housekeeper named Denise Carter, who reported that Preston had repeatedly asked her to handle personal errands beyond her scheduled duties whenever he visited the estate. The requests were not dangerous or dramatic. They were small enough to appear harmless, which was how old habits survived. Picking up dry cleaning, rearranging luggage, staying late while he finished telephone calls. Denise had agreed each time because Preston was family and because no one had clearly told her she could refuse. Maya documented the pattern and sent it directly to Rebecca. She did not confront Preston alone. She did not ask Julian to punish him privately. The process worked as designed. Preston received written notice that household employees could not be assigned personal tasks without prior approval, compensation, and consent. When he arrived the following Saturday, he found Maya in the library reviewing schedules. "You filed a complaint against me," he said. Denise reported a concern. "I documented it. She could have spoken to me." She believed saying no might affect her job. Preston gave a frustrated breath. "I would not have fired her over dry cleaning." She did not know that. Julian stood near the window, but he did not interrupt. Preston looked toward him. "Are you going to allow staff to question every favor?" Julian answered calmly. "A favor can be declined without consequence. Work cannot." Preston turned back to Maya. "This is getting unreasonable." Maya closed the folder. "Then the review process will determine that. Not you. Not me." Rebecca later met with Denise and Preston separately. The outcome was simple. Denise received payment for the extra hours. Preston acknowledged the requests in writing, and future personal errands required a separate arrangement. No one lost employment. No one was publicly humiliated. The rule merely prevented status from becoming permission. That evening, Julian found Maya in the breakfast room updating the policy binder. "You handled Preston without protecting his pride or attacking it," he said. "His pride was not part of the complaint. Most people in this house have treated it as policy." Maya looked up from the binder. "That includes you." Julian accepted the correction. "Yes." He sat across from her, leaving the desk between them clear. My mother believed you understood dignity better than the rest of us. Your mother understood what losing choice felt like. And you learned from her. Maya shook her head. We learned from each other. The answer stayed with him. He had spent years believing power meant having the final word. Maya was teaching him that real authority sometimes meant building a process strong enough to continue when he remained silent. Before leaving, she placed the updated binder on the shelf beside Margaret's place card. Outside, February rain tapped against the windows, washing the last gray snow from the stone terrace. The Christmas decorations were gone. The candles had been packed away. Yet the promise made at the table had survived long enough to become routine, and routine was where dignity either became real or disappeared.